we are back one more time with an episode of
The Horror Guys! Yay! It's us again, Brian and Kevin, on a dark and stormy night in the basements of.
I think we're living in a tent tonight.
It literally is a dark and stormy night.
Yes.
But we're making the best of it here at Horror Guys Studios and bringing the latest reviews to you. We saw some movies this week.
We did. We saw them on our regular old screen, not in our off-brand recording place away from the studio like we are today.
Yep.
So if our sound is a little off, we know.
Forgive us.
It's better to have the episode than have it be perfect, probably.
So if we sound funny, that's why. We're not at home.
We sound hilarious. Who are you trying to kid?
Okay. We sound very, very funny.
All right, well, what did we watch this week?
We saw some movies.
Saw?
Yeah.
All the Saws?
Well, it was Saw and Saw. The brand new I Saw the TV Glow.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, which wasn't a Saw movie, but it was a Saw movie. And Saw X, the 10th movie in the series. And Spiral, which was a Jigsaw spin-off set in the same universe. And Jigsaw 2017.
Yep.
Another.
Basically the three most recent Saw movies.
Yes.
Which gets us all caught up. If you want to go back and look at our old episodes, we have done Saw 1 through 6, and this time, or 1 through 7, and this time we've got 8, 9, and 10. We are current.
We have saw them all.
We have seen the Saws.
Yeah. And we got a couple golden oldies from 1941. We got The Invisible Ghost.
Ooh, Bela Lugosi.
With a Bela Lugosi, yeah. And a what year was this? This was 1960. Black Sunday.
Mario Bava.
Which really surprised us pleasantly with how entertaining that was.
It didn't look like much.
It didn't look like much, but it's one of those old foreign horror movies that just, wow. They knew what they were doing back then.
Yep.
Yeah.
As usual, this episode is brought to you by the Horror Guys Guides and the Horror Bulletin Monthly Magazine and Hour Long Press. 3 completely unrelated series that we just happen to write all of them.
But that's okay. You should buy them all.
We don't have any brand new books out, but the newest episode of Horror Bulletin Monthly, episode 34, issue 34, is available now. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Kobo, Apple, wherever you buy books.
Wherever fine ebooks are sold.
And even the not-so-fine ones.
Yeah.
We're everywhere. Or you could just go to horrorguysbooks.com and follow the links from there.
There's links to everything there.
Yeah. So basically, for this Horror Bulletin Monthly, we put out a monthly magazine that includes all our reviews, usually 30 or 31, depending how many days a month there are. And it's basically the same thing as what you see on horrorguys.com, only there's more of it. It's got the names of the movies and the years and the cast and the full spoilery synopsis if you want to spoil your movies. And, of course, what we think of it.
It gives you a good idea of what to see and what not to.
Yeah, every month we go over what we like best and what we like worst. And since we did all those Mad Max movies last month, we've got a nasty-looking road rage machine on the cover this time.
Very cool.
All right, but anyway, this week we saw the TV Glow.
From 2024, which was written and directed by Jane Schoenburn, stars Justice Smith, Bridget Lundy Payne, Ian Foreman, and it's an hour and 40 minutes. There's a trailer link in the show notes, trailer on YouTube.
We streamed this somewhere, but I couldn't tell you where now. Not Tubi.
And Fred Durst has a small role in it.
And I'm like, who?
Lead singer of Limp Bizkit.
Oh, that guy from the 70s.
Who pops up in movies once in a while, too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Spoiler-free, what did you think?
Well, this was beautiful, well-made movie with bright colors and angst and allegories galore. It's kind of a slow-moving piece, and we can't quite say we understood it, but it kept us watching with fascination, because it really is fascinating. It's a TV show that Owen is watching. So how could a TV show be impacting reality? But it certainly seems to be. We would recommend it for a watch with the caveat that you'll probably either love it or hate it or be baffled.
I have read many reviews of this, and it is just that. Everybody either loves it or hates it.
Or says, what did I just watch? I don't get it.
Well, I don't mind that so much. I have read that it's some sort of an allegory for trans life.
I've seen that said, but I didn't see
I
that
didn't see
watching
that
it.
either. I
don't-
picked up none of that in the movie.
Yeah, so I don't know. Maybe I need to see it again.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's pretty and it's good to watch. And
It's
yeah,
my favorite of the week.
I'd say mine too.
Okay. Yeah, it was one of the better movies we've seen in the past month for sure. Well, not to spoil the whole thing because it's new and you probably haven't seen it yet, and you should. But we start out with young Owen. He watches a trailer for a horror movie on TV, and the credits roll. It's 1996, and Owen is in school waiting for his mother to vote. And that's how we know it's 1996, because who was running? I don't remember. Clinton or somebody?
Clinton, was it?
You can see.
You can see. Yeah.
Well, he sees a girl there reading a book about that TV show, Pink Opaque. And then he talks to Maddie, who's 2 years ahead of him in school, and he wants to watch the show, but it's on in the evening past his bedtime. He asks his mom if he can stay over at a friend's house, and she makes it all as awkward as possible. She drops him off at the friend's house's door. He walks up to the doorbell, pretends to ring the bell as she sits there and waits.
Uh-huh.
And you're like, go away, Mom, go away. But then he sneaks over and goes to Maddie's house instead, where he can stay up to watch the show. And we see some of this show that they're watching, and it's full of lame teenage dialogue and a killer ice cream cone. What?
It's kind of surreal.
It's a very creepy, very scary looking ice cream cone, actually.
Yeah, it is. The creatures in it are creepy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Afterward, Maddie explains the show to him. The ice cream man is just the monster of the week. Mr. Melancholy is the big bad. Isabel and Tara are the main characters, and they are the Pink Opaque. He doesn't really understand most of it, but he goes to sleep on the floor at her house, and in the morning, Owen walks home thinking about the show. And it's explained in the various trivia that the show is kind of like Buffy the Vampire Slayer, where it's got magic and monsters of the week and that sort of thing.
But somehow it starts spilling over into reality.
Or does it?
Or does it? Is it just in his head?
Well, we cut ahead 2 years later, where Owen's mother has cancer. She says he always seems like he's somewhere else lately. He still has a 10:15 bedtime, and he's like 11th or 12th grade now. But he's still not allowed to stay up late enough to watch the show. His father's a jerk, so he still can't see the show no matter how much he wants. He tells Maddie this, and she starts taping it for him. Remember videotapes?
Back when that was a new thing.
She also writes him a lot of notes about the show, which he watches them over and over again. And then we watch part of the pilot episode with him, where the two girls in the imaginary show meet. Owen wants to stay at Maddie's house overnight and watch the show live, but she warns him that she's into girls, not him. Owen doesn't care much for boys or girls, he just likes TV shows. He thinks maybe there's something wrong with him. They stay up late, well, for him at least, and watch the show, and Maddie gets so moved she cries during the episode.
And you probably shouldn't spoil more than that.
Yeah, okay, it time jumps again several more times.
Yeah, it does.
And the show continues, and the two characters watch the show, and then the show gets canceled, and they deal with it, and it gets complicated.
It does. It's weird and interesting, and lots of bright colors, interesting lighting. Well, you can see in the poster the glow from the TV, the pink. There's lots of pink and purple lighting in it.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah, it's very cool.
The Pink Opaque.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure this is, we've been told, it's some kind of artsy allegory for something, but I have no idea what. As we said, we've read that it's about trans life, and I'm not really seeing it, but okay. That's what the director said.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a lot here about being a fan of media, especially back before the internet came along, and how people would obsess over their favorite shows, especially kids who didn't have anything else. You have any favorite TV shows like that?
No. No.
I used to watch The Incredible Hulk every week and just wait and wait and wait for him to get a cure. It never happened.
No, I never did. No.
Maddie talks about the real world suffocating him, and toward the end, more and more, Owen has trouble breathing. It's very atmospheric, visually interesting, but slow moving. We went into this one completely blind, and it still felt kind of blind afterward. Never really did have any idea where it was going, but it kept my interest throughout.
Yeah, mine too. I liked it.
Yeah, we both liked it a lot, but neither of us really feel like we understand it as much as we should have.
Yeah.
It was good, though. Definitely recommend it. You may hate it, but you're going to remember it. Okay, so like we said, we saw a couple of Saw movies this week. We've seen all the old ones, so we're skipping up to Jigsaw from 2017. Directed by Michael Spierig and Peter Spierig, written by Josh Stolberg and Pete Goldfinger, stars Matt Passmore, Tobin Bell, Callum Keith Rennie, and Hannah Anderson.
Now, wait a minute. How could it possibly star Tobin Bell? He died in the previous movie.
Was it the previous movie or was it like 3 movies before?
Well,
He's been dead a long time.
He keeps being dead and keeps doing this stuff.
Yeah, he does. Well, 10 years have passed since John's death, but we start right out with a group of people in a trap. Bodies of those who failed are dumped outside, putting the police on the case, as well as the 2 medical examiners. It's got all the Saw elements, and it's decently made, making us wonder what's going on. If you're a fan of the previous films, especially the first few, you'll probably enjoy this.
And these really should be watched in order.
They really should.
Yeah,
yes.
the order they came out, because things happen in the first and second one, especially in the third. They flash back.
There's a cast of characters that recur.
Yeah, and they spoil some of those early movies if you haven't already seen them. So yeah, you do want to stick with them in order.
All right, well, what happens?
Well, we open on a high-speed chase as someone runs from the cops and causes a lot of mayhem along the way. He climbs up on the roof of a building. The cops pull their guns, and the man, Edgar, claims that 5 men are going to die if Detective Halloran doesn't show up within minutes. Edgar says the game is about to get started. He's holding some kind of handheld detonator, so the cops shoot it, blow his hand off. As Edgar collapses, one in the chest, he groans, "The game, it started," and credits roll.
Well, how's a lot?
Yeah, big action opening. Well, 5 men, oh no, not just men, people, wake up with buckets bolted to their heads. A very familiar voice comes over the speaker and explains all the rules of the game they're going to play. All the buckets have a chain that's going to pull them into spinning saw blades. John says he wants an offering of blood to get out of his trap. One girl lightly cuts herself on a saw blade and gets out. She warns the others, who lose more or less blood. They get pulled into the next room, all but one guy who dies. Anna, Mitch, Carly, and Ryan are in the trap room. At the hospital, meanwhile, Detective Halloran and Hunt talk about Edgar. They can't figure out what Edgar was up to, and he's not able to tell them because of all his wounds. He's not dead yet, but he's pretty bad shape. In the park, some people find the man who died in the saw room hanging from a bridge. He's still wearing his bucket helmet. And the corpse has a jigsaw piece carved into his neck.
Well, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, it does. Halloran mentions, it's just like John Kramer used to do, but he's been dead for 10 years. And if you've seen the movies, he is definitively dead.
Yeah, they got the body and everything.
There was no doubt. They took his brain out even. Well, he's got a tag, and then there were 4 on a memory card. The card has an audio of Jigsaw saying there are going to be 4 more, and it sounds just like John Kramer.
A voice from the grave.
Yeah, how's he doing this? Well, in the trap room, little doll Billy rides his tricycle with a sign that says "Confess" around his neck. The chains start pulling them again, and they do all start confessing. Mitch sold a guy a bad motorcycle. Anna lost her baby, but those aren't too much. Mitch plays the audio tape, and we get a flashback to a purse snatcher stealing a dying woman's medication. Carly gets a 1 in 3 chance of injecting herself with acid.
Ouch.
Yeah. Well, Carly admits to accidentally killing someone as a result of her stealing. She and Ryan argue about the injections until Ryan stabs her with all 3 of the syringes. And that turns out to be pretty messy for her. Back at the morgue, there's a lot of hopping back and forth. Halloran reports that the voice ID says that was John Kramer on the recording. The dead guy was a degenerate who got off the hook for murdering his own wife. Well, meanwhile, back in the traps, there's still Mitch, Ryan, and Anna. They're in the next room. Ryan admits that he sold bad mortgages and good coke. Anna mentions that her husband rolled over and suffocated her baby, but that wasn't her fault. Ryan tries to break down the door marked "No Exit," and ends up with his leg trapped in a kind of a spring-loaded thing that's going to amputate it.
Ouch.
Yeah. Well, Carly's body is found by the police, and Logan, the coroner, and his assistant Eleanor get to work on her, identifying the acid that killed her. Halloran starts to suspect that they might be the killers.
Oh, wait, the coroner and the assistant.
Could be.
That's crazy.
It's got to be somebody. Eleanor has been spending a lot of time on the dark web researching Jigsaw, and they find a blood sample on the first victim, and it's John Kramer's blood.
But he's dead.
He's dead. Mitch and Anna get stuck in a grain silo, and video screens come on. Billy explains that Ryan can save the other two if he's brave enough to pull the lever before they're buried alive. Well, Ryan worries that he'll lose his leg if he pulls the lever, and it's all very tense, but eventually he does pull the lever, and he does messily lose his leg. But the others get out of the silo. Well, Eleanor and Logan talk about them being Halloran's prime suspects in the case. Halloran's not a great detective, and several suspects have gotten off on technicalities in the past. Eleanor admits that her alibi for the first victim is sketchy, so she drives him to her studio, where she has collected a whole bunch of John's old traps. She's a real fan of his work.
More than a little fan.
She's got plans and even rebuilt some of them herself. Detective Hunt has followed them and starts taking pictures. Back at the hospital, someone kidnaps Edgar. Halloran looks into Logan's military history. He was tortured during the war. In the trap room, Mitch finds a tape with his name on it. John brings up the faulty brakes on the motorcycle Mitch sold. The guy who bought it was John's nephew. Revenge. Mitch is suspended above some huge shredding bales, powered by the same motorcycle engine, and there's not much left of Mitch when it's over. And someone in a pig mask sedates Anna. Well, the cops, they're getting all this physical evidence, so they say, let's exhume John Kramer. Except inside the coffin is Edgar. Halloran and Hunt raid Eleanor's jigsaw studio, and they find Mitch's body there, which seems almost too easy. Hunt goes to arrest Logan, who claims it must have been Halloran. Hunt is with Internal Affairs and was already investigating Halloran, so could Halloran be a copycat killer?
It could be anybody at this point.
It could be anybody at this point, yeah. Maybe even John back from the dead.
Yeah, it could be.
Yeah. Well, Eleanor comes to Logan. She says she knows where the current game is taking place. Anna wakes up in chains next to Ryan. We see that they are with the real John Kramer, not dead at all. He tells what Ryan's guilty of. Anna used to be John's neighbor, and he knows that she was the one who killed their baby. Her husband was accused, and he later killed himself. Yeah, she did it, and then
This is getting very intricate.
made it look like he did. It is complicated, yeah.
A bunch of crimes, a bunch of criminals, and a bunch of traps.
Yeah. But John is there. How is this possible?
And a dead guy, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Eleanor drives Logan to an abandoned pig slaughterhouse that used to be owned by John's wife. Halloran has followed them. They go inside, and we see it's the right place. Halloran comes in, gun drawn, and there's a fight. Someone injects Halloran with a knockout drug. Hunt finds little jigsaw pieces of flesh in Halloran's freezer. So it's looking like Halloran did it. John leaves Ryan and Anna a gun with one shell and leaves. One must shoot the other, or so it appears. Anna grabs the gun, points it at Ryan, and the gun shoots backwards, killing her. And there was a clue that John gave that was going to happen. Unfortunately, the key to Ryan's padlock was destroyed in the gun blast. So they're both screwed. Logan wakes up in a trap right across from Halloran, in the same kind of trap as him. John's voice comes on, and it says they are the two final players. Their collars have laser cutters inside, and all they have to do to escape is confess their sins.
I didn't do it.
Earlier, those laser cutters are like, science fiction-y. They were using them in the in the morgue, and I was thinking, that's Chekhov's laser cutter. We're going to see those again. That was just too obvious. Yeah. Well, Logan admits that he was the medical student who messed up John's x-rays many years ago, making his cancer harder to cure. And the laser slices him anyway, with blood gushing out his neck as he collapses. Halloran starts confessing all his police screw-ups and wrongdoings. He did all kinds of stuff on purpose, screwing people over.
He's a very crooked cop.
Yeah. Well, the lasers turn off, but he is not released. And then Logan stands up. His lasers weren't fatal at all, and the blood was fake. Logan is the one behind all this. He recorded Halloran's confession. 10 years ago, a game like this was played with Anna, Ryan, and the others, which took place in this barn. That's why we got a time jump going on.
Okay.
Back 10 years ago when John was still alive. So, he was the first body, the guy that we never really saw die. John gave him a second chance and took him in as a protege.
He has lots of helpers.
He does, yeah. So Logan decided to reenact the very same games with Mitch, Ryan, Carly, and the others. Logan adds that Edgar killed his wife, but Halloran kept him out of prison because Edgar was his informant. And then we get a flashback showing how Logan set all this up. Logan turns on Halloran's lasers, and they split his head open like a bloomin' onion.
Bloomin' oven?
Yeah. I speak for the dead, Logan says as he leaves.
All right. Well, this takes place 10 years after the previous film. There's none of the same characters here. It's got a lot more traps and fewer callbacks. Kind of like a reboot. It's kind of nothing different or unique. But if you like the others, it's well done.
Quite good. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, then which one came next? Spiral from 2021. Directed by Darren Lynn Bousman, written by Josh Stolberg and Pete Goldfinger. Stars who? What? Chris Rock.
Chris Rock.
Samuel L. Jackson and Max Minghella. Hour and 33 minutes. Trailer in the usual place. Spoiler free. What happens?
Well, this was set in the same universe as the Saw movies, and it's sort of a spin-off. It was well made, we thought. It's got the realistic effects and the decent acting. Cast is good, but it still managed to be a little bit bland. And we thought it was kind of easy to solve compared to some of the others. If you're a fan of the series, you might want to see it for completion, but we don't give this one as high of a recommendation.
Yeah, it was a decent enough cop mystery movie, but as a Saw movie, it was kind of weak.
Yeah, a little bit.
Well, a purse snatcher runs through a crowded carnival.
And the gore is still certainly there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And another guy with a gun chases him down into the subway tunnels. One of those men with the pig masks that you see all the time in these films grabs him from behind. He wakes up inside a machine that is chained to his tongue, and he's balanced over the subway track. The pig man comes on the screen and says he wants to play a game. The man hanging from his tongue is accused of lying on the stand to put innocent people in jail. The only way he can get out of the trap is to rip his own tongue off.
Ow.
He tries, and he takes too long, and the train hits him.
That one was visceral. Yeah. Owie.
Yeah, it looked painful.
Yeah.
And then the credits roll. So Zeke Banks goes on a tirade about Forrest Gump and how he died of AIDS from Jenny, which is why there was never a sequel. You got classic Chris Rock going on here.
Yeah.
His friends then break into the hotel room next door and steal a bunch of money from drug dealers. Then, a dozen cops break in and arrest them all. Turns out Zeke is an undercover cop.
Suckers.
Captain Garza then chews out Zeke for being a lone wolf cop. Oh, how many times have we seen that trope?
We have, yeah.
She assigned Detective Schenk to be his new partner and babysitter. Zeke turned in a bad cop 12 years ago and has been paying for it with other cops ever since. The pair are assigned to investigate a case where a guy got hit by a train. That sounds familiar, doesn't it?
It does.
Zeke and Schenk talk about how hard it is to be a cop. And then they find that guy from the opening scene, or what's left of him. Back at the station, Zeke gets a flash drive that says, "Play me." The spiral on the tape hints that it's related to the Jigsaw killings. But that was a long time ago. This might be a copycat killing of some kind. Well, then they find that man's tongue and a badge. He was Boz, a cop friend of Zeke's.
Oh my.
Zeke takes charge of the case, which annoys many of the other detectives. He goes to see Kara, Boz's wife. Lisa, Zeke's wife, is there as well. Zeke goes home and finds Marcus, his father, Samuel L. Jackson, a retired cop, already there, and they argue. Well, the detectives all get together and talk about the evidence that they don't have. Detective Finch finds out that Boz was chasing a small-time crook named Benny, who stole a gun from a shop. Finch goes to where Benny stays, but someone grabs him from behind and puts him in a machine. Uh-oh.
Uh-oh.
We flash back to when Zeke turned in Pete, the dirty cop. Zeke's father, Marcus, was the police chief at the time, and he was not happy about the situation. Zeke gets another video taunting him and the police. It leads them to a box of fingers and Finch's badge.
Uh-oh.
We flash to Finch not doing his job when Zeke got shot. We then flash to what happened to Finch. He was in a finger pulling off machine.
A very effective machine.
Yeah.
Very painful
Pull
looking
them all
machine.
off.
Ouch. It has ouchies.
Oh, yeah.
This one does, yeah.
Checking out his list of enemies, Zeke goes to see Pete, the cop he got thrown off the force. He's uncooperative, but still tells Zeke what he needs to know. Zeke gets another box. This one has a doll wearing the skin off of Shank's arm.
Yeah, recognizes the tattoo. Ew.
The little paint bottle included leads them to a hobby shop where they find Shank's skinned body. Meanwhile, Captain Garza gets gassed in the cold case room and passes out. The pig mask guy is there and puts her in the next contraption. The tape comes on and says she covers up the corruption in her own department. The machine, as with Finch, is a no-win situation, and she dies painfully.
Right there in the police building. That's ballsy.
Yeah, now this is different from the other films, because there's always a chance to get out of the other films, because John plays fair.
These were just death traps.
There's no way of getting out of these.
He was punishing these people. Who's ever behind it
Yep.
is mad at these people.
O'Brien suggests that Marcus may be involved, since he knew about the hobby shop location, and then Zeke hits him. Both Pete and Marcus had access to the security camera footage at the police station. Someone grabbed Zeke. We cut to Marcus, who is checking out a spiral location. There's a note asking if he wants to play a game, and someone grabs him as well.
Uh-oh.
Zeke wakes up chained to a pipe with a hacksaw within reach. He could cut his arm off, or he could use the hairpin to pick the lock. He gets out and finds Pete hanging from his hands from the roof. Pete denies knowing anything about what's been going on, and they play a tape and hear all about Peter's crime. This particular trap shoots broken glass at Pete unless Zeke can unlock the padlocks holding him there. Zeke finds the key, but it's too late for Pete.
Poor Pete.
Zeke goes into the next room and finds Shank there. Not dead, after all.
Psych!
Pete killed Shank's father. Shank lied about everything else. Pete, Finch, Boz, and the others were all crooked, not like Zeke. Shank wants to partner up with Zeke to clean out the police force. Shank shows Zeke into a room where his father hangs from chains. Zeke has one bullet to either shoot Shank or free Marcus.
Yeah, that was a this spiral bullseye near the ceiling. You have to shoot that like a bizarre carnival game to free his dad. Or he could shoot Shank.
Yeah, and then Shank reveals that Marcus was the one who corrupted the police force in the first place. He's the worst of the bad cops.
He's the baddest of cops, yeah.
Zeke shoots the trap and releases Marcus. He chases and beats up Shank. The police arrive outside and start cutting through the steel door, and they cut through a cable that pulls Marcus right back up again like a puppet on strings.
Booby trapped.
Sorta. The cables on Marcus make him raise a gun and point it at the cops. It's like raises his arm and he's got a shotgun stuck to each hand.
And he can't drop it, and despite them screaming at him to drop it, so they blow him away.
Yeah, the cops shoot him.
Yeah, yeah.
Shank then takes the elevator and gets away. All right, that's it. Cliffhanger. We'll probably be seeing lots more of those guys.
Maybe.
Well, Kevin felt early on that Shank would turn out to be the killer. I thought it was more likely Marcus. Both of them were apparently eliminated as suspects well before the end, but also either or both could have been a red herring. They both had excuses, but obviously one of them was fake.
Mm-hmm. Shank totally faked it.
And this is more of a side story to the main series, as it's a copycat killer, and John Jigsaw doesn't appear at all in this one. Since it's not really John, the rules are different, and we never really know why any of this is happening until the end. I'm going to quote Kevin on this one. It was okay.
I said it just like that, too.
It was okay.
It was okay.
Definitely not up to the rest of the series, but not bad in itself.
Yeah.
Yeah,
For completionists. Yeah.
it's okay.
Yeah, it was all right.
Did we watch a short film this week?
We did. We saw Pizza Panic.
Pizza Panic Party.
Pizza Panic Party?
Pizza Panic Party.
Pizza.
From
And,
2024.
And appropriately set in the 1980s.
Written and directed by Graham Denman. Stars Avery Potemkin, Sidney McCarthy, Chaya Matthews, and Kira Wisely. And runtime is 9 minutes and 37 seconds. Trailer. No, not trailer. You can watch the whole thing right now free on YouTube.
Absolutely free.
There's a link. What happens?
Well, Margot, Jeanette, Tracy, and Sandra, they're 4 teenagers in 1986. And they get together to watch movies and listen to music in their typical 1980s style. And they order in pizza. But one of the girls argues about the toppings, leaving more for Margot. And as Margot eats the pizza, she and the others soon regret it.
That's some serious pizza.
But why?
Okay, well, this one looks great. It's got that very 80s aesthetic down, much like Stranger Things did before they gave up on it and got lazy. The special effects are really good for a short, and the dialogue and the gore shots are perfect for the retro film look of the film. I mean, it's not new modern CGI, but for a 1980s thing, it looks great.
Yeah.
It's really good, possibly in the running for the best of the year this time around.
Very nice. Excellent,
Yeah.
excellent short.
What's next?
Well, we should talk about something old.
Something old?
How about something old?
Okay,
Switch over to The Invisible Ghost from 1941,
with Dracula.
which was directed by Joseph H. Lewis, written by Helen Martin and Al Martin, stars Bela Lugosi, Polly Ann Young, John McGuire, and Clarence Muse. Runtime is short. It's only an hour and 4 minutes.
I like those 1940s movies that barely make an hour.
And you can watch it in its entirety on YouTube for
Oh,
free.
yeah, it's a freebie on YouTube. That's nice. That's always nice.
Cool poster.
Black and white, though.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Well, spoiler. What happened? Spoiler free.
The premise is a little far-fetched on this one, but it still managed to be a decent film. And despite the title, there are no actual ghosts. Just crazy people doing crazy things. But still, it's a fun one, and the cast did a nice job with it. If you like, the old 1940s, black and white noir kind of.
This is one of them.
This is one of them. If you're a fan of that style, yeah, it's well made, and yeah, you should check it out.
Charles Kessler comes downstairs, and the servant Evan says it's time for dinner. Charles sits at the table alone and talks to his wife, who is just an empty chair. Evan serves her first. So, is Kessler insane, or is there a ghost there that we don't see?
It's too early to say for sure.
Virginia asks Evans about her father, and she doesn't seem surprised. Ralph comes to the door, and Virginia isn't thrilled to see him. Ralph watches Charles talking to his imaginary wife. Virginia explains to Ralph that it's like this every year. Her mother left Charles for another man, and he does this every year on their anniversary. Then the two go out for a walk. Okay, so it's not a ghost. Maybe he's not crazy.
Maybe not.
Cecile, the maid, talks to Evans about whether or not Virginia and Ralph are going to get married. Jules, the gardener, has told Cecily?
I think it's Cecily.
Cecily about the local murders, and she's a little weirded out by that. Jules then grabs some food and sneaks out to the barn, where he goes down a trap door into the cellar, where they keep Mrs. Kessler.
Oh my.
He tells her that no one knows where she is but him. She's not quite mentally all there. Jules's wife asks why Jules doesn't tell Charles about having his wife in the barn, but he doesn't think Charles would take it well. Could she be behind the murders? No, Jules says. She is like a child. He's waiting for Mrs. Kessler to get better, and is afraid to talk to anyone about her at this point for fear of getting in real trouble.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those situations where it went on so long and now he's kind of trapped.
Seemed like a good idea locking her in the barn at the time.
It did somehow, but now it's not so much.
Now it's kidnapping.
Now it's just awkward when, he's missing her so much and she's right outside.
Cecily approaches Ralph, and she knows him from before. She's infatuated with him, but she says he'll never marry her. Cecily plans to tell Virginia about him soon. Later that night, Mrs. Kessler wanders out of the barn, which apparently is kept unlocked.
Which was a dumb move.
Yeah. She stands in the yard, and Charles sees her. "I'm afraid to come home. You'd kill me. You'd kill anybody," she says to herself. Charles thinks he imagined it, but he starts walking around as if he's in a trance. He goes downstairs into Cecily's room, and Evans finds her body in the morning.
Oh.
Charles calls the police, who find a note. They find a note from Ralph in Cecily's pocket, warning her to leave. Evans overheard the conversation between Cecily and Ralph is arrested and charged for murder. Ralph is soon convicted, sentenced to death, and executed, all very quickly.
Yeah, that was like the hardest part to believe. I mean,
That quick. Huh?
yeah, usually somebody's on death row for 30 years before they.
Here we are on the political hour of the horror guys.
Well,
Yeah, you only get the death sentence in a week in a movie.
it was a different time. Plus the movies. Yeah.
Paul Dixon, Ralph's identical twin brother, comes to see Charles. That night, Mrs. Kessler gets out of the barn again, and once again, Charles sees her and goes into a trance. He then goes downstairs and kills Jules in the kitchen. In the morning, Evans finds Jules's body as well. Virginia says that the others had been killed here, but no one can find any clues, fingerprints, or evidence. They'd leave, but Charles's wife used to be here, so they refuse to leave just in case she comes back.
She's already back. They just don't know that.
Detective Williams talks to Paul about the details of the case. Jules's wife comes to see the body and screams that he's not dead. He is, in fact, twitching and trying to talk. Charles is there, and he asks if Julia recognized the man who tried to kill him. Jules takes one look at him and dies of fright right then. Charles finds it all confounding.
He has no memory of it.
He did it, but he doesn't know he did it.
Yeah.
Charles talks to Marie, the new cook, about not quitting. Well, please don't quit, just because everybody's dying.
Just because people are dying and things are weird, stick with it. You'll like it.
Well, she's pleased that Charles liked dinner and agrees to stay. Later, Charles sees his wife looking into the window, and he ends up sneaking into Virginia's room. Lightning flashes, and Charles comes out of his trance. What's he doing in his daughter's room? He goes back to his own room without hurting anyone. In the morning, Charles is terrified that the cook has been murdered, but she was just out shopping. Detective Williams comes to the door and says the police were stationed out all night. They find Detective Ryan in one of the rooms, dead. The cook complains about food missing from the kitchen. Williams thinks the murderer is probably Evans, but Paul suggests bringing in a psychiatrist to judge Evans. As they question Evans, Mrs. Kessler sneaks in the back door and raids the fridge.
That's where the missing food's gone.
A couple of police officers walk in and catch her in the act. "But I'm dead, you understand." What?
What?
She must be the invisible ghost.
Yep.
They take her upstairs where the others are. As soon as Charles lays eyes on her, he goes into his trance as the others all watch. Charles then attacks Williams. In the next room, Mrs. Kessler just falls over dead, because the movie's about over and she has to.
For real this time.
At the same time, Charles relaxes and comes out of his trance. What happened here? He still has no idea what he's done, and then the police take him away to jail.
What a movie.
What did I do? I don't know, but you're going to get executed for it.
Yeah, that's right.
There's a mildly racist joke as Evans, who is black, and he's also the suspect of the crime, by the way, sees Paul and thinks he's seen Ralph Ghost. Am I pale? I feel pale. Yes, he was almost scared white.
Almost.
The story moves along very quickly and is interesting, but the main concept is ridiculous. The insane wife triggers her husband into a murderous trance.
Because reasons.
There's no ghosts, invisible or otherwise, just a couple of crazy people and a weird domestic situation. Other than the silly premise, it's still kind of a fun film.
And Bela Lugosi's a hoot in it.
Oh, he's a hoot and everything.
Pretty much, yeah.
Speaking of hoots,
Hoots.
Black Sunday from 1960, also known as The Mask of Satan. Directed by Mario Bava, written by Ennio Di Cassini, Mario Sorrendre, and Nikolai Gogol. Stars Barbara Steele, John Richardson, and Andrea Cecchi. Hour and 27 minutes, trailer in the show notes. That is kind of a creepy looking poster there.
It is, yeah.
Got the eyes. Well, excellent sets, a good script, skillful direction, and a strong cast make for a good movie that still holds up and is entertaining today. And that's about all we can say spoiler free.
Should we spoil it? Because this one's so important that, I mean, I know
It's 64
I
years
know
old.
it's 64 years old, but I bet there's lots of our fans out there saying, wow, I've never heard of this movie. We should see it.
All right, couple paragraphs.
Okay,
Get us started.
We'll give you a little taste, yeah. Satan was abroad in the 17th century, and so were witches and vampires. Before the hunters burned them at the stake, they were branded with the mask of Satan.
Mark of Satan.
Oh, Mark
The
of
mask
Satan.
comes in later.
Oh, that's right. Oh, they used the mask of Satan to make the mark of Satan. Yeah. Asa's face gets covered in the mask of Satan before she is burned for falling in love with the Igor, how do you say that? Javutich. The metal mask has spikes on the inside. In the name of Satan, I place the curse on you, she says before the burning begins. And the executioner uses a big hammer to smash the mask over her face.
So wait a minute, we got this big metal mask with spikes on the inside. It's broiled red hot, and then they slam it shut with a hammer.
Very effective.
That's hard on the skin.
That's the mask of Satan.
It certainly is.
Yeah. And 2 centuries later. Would you mind reading these names?
Professors Andrei Gorobek and Thomas Kruvachan ride a carriage to Moscow for a conference. And they stop over in a little village for the night. They bribe the coachman, who is clearly terrified of the region, into taking a shortcut through the haunted woods. Never do that!
No, don't take shortcuts.
When the carriage loses a wheel, the two men investigate an old church in an old cemetery. Never do that! Well, the two go down in an old mausoleum which is covered in dust. They find one coffin with a window, and they see the mask of Satan on the dead witch.
Mm-hmm.
The driver calls Andre, the young professor, out, but Thomas, the older one, stays behind to explore some more. He's attacked by a giant bat, and in the scuffle, the window of the coffin gets smashed. Thomas pulls off the mask and cuts himself, dripping blood into the coffin.
Never drip blood onto a dead witch.
On the way out, you have so many opportunities for that.
Yeah. Everybody knows you don't do that.
On the way out, they see a woman walking her dogs. She's Katya Javda, but we recognize her face. She's Asa the witch. The driver announces that the carriage is fixed, but we see that Andre is smitten. Back in the tomb, we see something bubbling inside the old witch's corpse. We should probably stop there. There's a witch that came back from the dead, probably.
Probably. It's very vampire-y and witchy and magic. And yeah, there's all kinds of good stuff in this one.
The sets in the cemetery and the mausoleum are very intricate and interesting. It's very interesting sets here.
Yeah, there are.
The movie is very dark, but is lit well so you could see everything and it's all clear and sharp. I like how it can be a dark, black movie and you can still see everything.
It seems like sometimes they know how to do that and sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in this movie, to kill a vampire, you need to stab them in the left eye socket.
Well, that's very specific.
Yeah, it's very specific. Not the right eye socket.
Just the left eye socket.
It's surprisingly gory for such an old film, and I think it still really holds up pretty well today.
Yeah, we were so pleasantly surprised by this.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
And now, the final chapter.
Of Saw.
Well, at least final as of last year. Saw X. Saw 10.
And we're not going to spoil this one completely either because it's kind of new. And it's kind of important to not be spoiled.
Yeah. Directed by Kevin Grutert, written by Pete Goldfinger and Josh Stolberg, stars Tobin Bell, who died like 8 movies ago, Shawnee Smith, who hasn't appeared in like 8 movies, Sonove Makodi Lund, and Stephen Brand. Hour and 58 minutes. Ooh, it's a long one.
Yeah, worth it though.
Trailer in the usual place. Spoiler free. This is effectively Saw 1.5. which takes place between the first and the second movies. Oh, not exactly a prequel.
No,
I guess it is a prequel to 8.5 movies.
but not a prequel to the beginning.
John is the main character this time around, which was interesting, giving his lessons a little more directly and a little more hands-on.
Yeah, he was very involved.
Usually he's like in the background. He's obviously the mastermind, but usually it's about the people in the traps. This time it's about him.
Yeah, very much so.
There are games and traps galore, and we thought it was excellent, one of the best in the series.
So pleased, because
I think if
A
you
lot
like
of
the first
times-
one, this is the second best of the bunch.
yeah, exactly. A lot of times, movies, series, they'll get weaker and weaker as they go on.
This is no exception.
This was a nice, strong finish. Yeah, very pleased. Well, we open up on John getting some medical tests done. As we know, he had cancer. We then cut to him in a cancer support group. And the doctor gives him a few months to live, maybe a year, along with some very unsupportive advice. Well, while in the hospital, John sees one of the staff, a custodian, go through another patient's things and steal his watch. And we cut to that staff member sitting inside one of Jigsaw's finger-breaking, eyeball-sucking out games. Wait, no, that was all just John fantasizing about it, standing there.
I could do that to him.
And the custodian sees John watching and puts the watch back in the drawer and avoids that fate.
Good move for the
Yeah.
custodian.
Uh-huh. John sees a man that he met in the support group, and he's in remission now and feeling much better. He looks great and healthy. Henry talks about a doctor that he read about who operated on him and gave medication, but the treatment isn't approved yet. He gives him a link to Dr. Finn Peterson. John researches Peterson on the internet, and there's a whole conspiracy thing going on where Peterson went into hiding from Big Pharma because he could cure cancer, and so they want to shut him down. Well, he's in hiding, but Peterson's daughter is still active, and John contacts her. She soon calls John, sets up a time to get him into treatment near Mexico City. And they arrange to pick John up at the airport and take him to treatment. On the way, they're pulled over by bandits. Well, except the bandits work for the hospital. The kidnapping was to avoid infiltrators from the big drug companies. Well, he gets to a big building and meets Gabriella, who shows him around. She says that Cecilia Peterson saved her life. The place used to be a chemical factory, but now it's a secret high-tech operating facility. He meets Valencia and Matteo, some of the other staff, as well as Parker Sears, another patient. Cecilia asks John what he does, and he says he helps people overcome their obstacles, kind of like a life coach.
Wow.
This is after he has started in the first movie. He's well into his career, so to speak. Well, not long after, John undergoes brain surgery. Later, he wakes up in a hotel. Cecilia says he's doing much better. She tells him to leave his bandage alone, drink his medicine for the next 7 days, and then go home. He'll be fine. And he agrees to wire the second half of the payment in the morning. Well, a few days later, he takes a gift of tequila to Gabriella and finds the whole hospital is deserted, and realizes that the whole treatment was fake. He pulls off his bandage, and there's no surgery scar at all.
I think they've cheated the wrong guy.
They have cheated the wrong guy, and boy, does he make them pay for this.
Yes, he does.
And the rest of the movie is basically that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, this is actually the first time that John is...
But it's complicated, of course,
Oh,
too,
of course
because
it
it's
is,
Saw
yes.
and it's John. So, it's not simple.
Yeah.
It's not as just simple as, he's getting revenge.
That's maybe 20 minutes in to get the story started.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, this is the first time that John is the main character, not a policeman or some other victim. It's usually like from the cops or the victim's point of view. Way back in Saw 6, John's insurance company denied him coverage for this treatment. They specifically mentioned some unapproved thing in, I think, Norway or something. In this one, though, he tries for it anyway. It actually takes place between Saw 1 and Saw 2. So how does a sickly old man in Mexico who doesn't speak the language at all make these death machines?
Suspension of disbelief.
He gets all his revenge in Mexico City. He specifically admits he does not speak Spanish. He can barely walk because he's got cancer. And yet he makes these amazing torture machines.
How does he do it? Well, you have to find out. by
Suspension
watching.
of disbelief.
Well, there's some of that, but some of it is explained.
Well, Billy and the audio tapes are not really necessary since John is right there personally involved this time, but they are a nice connection to the other films. But here's my big complaint.
Yeah,
Both
me
Tobin
too.
Bell and Shawnee Smith look way too old for a prequel movie. That's the way it goes sometimes. It's been like 20 years for these two. Mm-hmm. In all the films, John's victims are criminals or otherwise deserve what they get, but this time it all seems much more personal and reasonable. And it might be the best of the series after the original.
I'd put it way up there.
Maybe even better than the original if you really like the revenge movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
It's a good one.
it's excellent.
Yeah. Hey, that's it for this week.
Already?
That's it.
Okay.
What do we do next week?
We're going to talk about more movies.
6 more movies in a short next week.
All right.
Or what are they going to be?
It's a surprise.
Yeah, I don't know either.
We'll look at our pool of things.
Yeah, stop in every week over at horrorbulletin.com. Sign up for our free weekly newsletter. Check out the podcast, horrorguyspodcast.com, and subscribe there. And we'll see you next week.
See ya.